Noroviruses are one of the most common causes of foodborne illness. The first norovirus ever isolated was called the Norwalk virus, and it was isolated in 1968 from Norwalk, Ohio. We, like the scientific community, generally now tries to avoid naming viruses after places because there can be a lot of stigma associated with that. But this one's already named, so it is what it is. It was diagnosed because some clinicians did electron microscopy of stool samples during an outbreak of gastroenteritis, and they saw those viral particles in there. They are very small, similar in size to picorona. They are positive sense strand, single-stranded RNA genomes, and they're naked. Up to this point, scientists have not been able to grow this virus in cell culture, so it cannot be diagnosed using culture. Human strains only infect humans, so this is not one that we would get from animals. It is very infectious. As few as 10 virions can cause disease. When you think about how many virions an infectious person is shedding, it's no wonder that these viruses go around. They will damage the small intestine, and that leads to watery diarrhea. It can also cause vomiting, but diarrhea is the major symptom. Shedding of the virus can occur for up to 2 weeks after the end of symptoms, so it is not recommended after you've had a bout of diarrhea to do things like go swimming or go on a cruise ship or anything like that. The high number of strains and the weak immune response mean reinfection is possible. Generally, what we see in terms of our symptoms is within a day or two of exposure to the virus, diarrhea, vomiting, cramping, nausea, headache, loss of appetite, tiredness, and sometimes fever. I mean, it's a gastrointestinal infection. It's going to be diarrhea and vomiting. Usually what we see is that there's a common source of infection, often like the same food item or the same surface that everybody touched, so like a cruise ship. And not to put too fine a point on it, it's because that food item, that surface, whatever, has been contaminated by feces or vomit. There are literally hundreds of millions of viral particles shed per gram of feces, and it only takes 10 viral particles to make somebody sick. So it's no wonder. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of contamination in order to spread. Because they're naked, they are resistant to heat and drying, and they can remain on surfaces for an extended period of time. And again, up to 100 billion, and see, I was being conservative by saying hundreds of millions, up to 100 billion virions per gram of feces, and even asymptomatic individuals can shed. So if you do some math real quick, we'll do some poopy math. If there are 100 billion virions per gram of feces, it only takes 10 virions to make somebody sick. In 1 gram of feces, you have enough virus to make 10 billion people sick. There aren't even 10 billion people on the planet. So when a person is at peak shedding, they literally could infect the entire world with just 1 gram of feces. And because it can remain on surfaces, if people don't wash their hands very well, if they miss a spot, right, virions are going to go everywhere. This is an outbreak of norovirus or Norwalk virus in children who attended a concert. Infection was traced back to contamination of a specific seating area, bathrooms, and other areas visited by one individual. A male concert attendee was ill prior to attending a concert, then vomited 4 times in the concert hall, in a waste bin in the corridor, into the toilets, onto the floor of the fire escape, and on a carpet area of a walkway. Dude, if you're sick, stay home. You should not be out in public vomiting 4 times at a concert. His family members showed symptoms within 24 hours. A children's concert for several schools was held the next day. Children sitting in the same area as the incident case, those who traversed the contaminated carpet, had the highest incidence of disease, characterized by watery diarrhea and vomiting for approximately 2 days. RT-PCR of fecal samples from 2 ill children detected Norwalk virus genomic RNA. Infected vomit may have up to 1 million viruses per milliliter, and only 10 to 100 are required to transmit the disease. Contact with contaminated shoes, hands, clothing, or aerosols may have infected the children. The encapsulated nature of the Norwalk virus, so the fact that it doesn't have an envelope, makes it resistant to routine cleansers. Disinfection usually requires freshly prepared hypochlorite bleach-containing solutions or steam cleaning. Again, you can do RT-PCR for diagnosis from vomit or stool, electron microscopy to ID the virus from stool. Here's an electron micrograph of norovirus. There is an ELISA available. Generally, when a patient has diarrhea, best you do is you give them rehydration so that they don't get too dehydrated, especially when you're talking about children. You know, Pedialyte or whatever type of liquid with electrolytes is really going to be beneficial. Careful hand washing, clean contaminated surfaces with bleach, don't go on a cruise. Sometimes when noroviruses get on a cruise, like let's say a cruise ship holds 3,000 people, over 1,000 of them will have diarrhea. I don't know that I could imagine anything worse than being stuck on a boat where 1/3 of the people, maybe even including myself, have diarrhea and vomiting. Like that sounds like a nightmare. I'm paranoid about cruises. So here's a few headlines for you. Nearly 100 swimmers at a Maine beach were infected with norovirus. Norovirus outbreak among North Carolina McDonald's customers was not linked to a different infection that was found in salads. More recently, norovirus sickens hundreds of students at a Long Island high school, and Chipotle agrees to pay $25 million penalty for the 2015 through 2018 norovirus outbreaks. I think the closest one to us was there were 1 or 2 patients who ate at the Chipotle in Turlock that got norovirus. And I live in Turlock or close to it. And I do currently eat at that Chipotle, but it's been a few years, so I'm feeling a little more confident. It's common, it's around, it happens, but proper hygiene goes a long way to preventing infection.